Y'all know what it is. Y'all know who it is. It's your boy Pharaoh the God. Always on the job. I got five. Let's talk. And as always, it's real talk, raw talk. And you know it's that time again to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell another friend to share, like, and subscribe. It don't cost you much to touch, so go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Welcome to another episode of I Got Five Let's Talk, the platform podcast. And as you know, I'm your host, Pharaoh the God, and I'm always on the job. Today's war report is news coming out of Africa, Mali, that the Minister of Defense has been assassinated in his own home. And I've been telling people since this war has started, this is the war America and Europe doesn't want you to see. America and Europe doesn't want you to notice that they're losing power. So if no one knows what's going on in Africa, maybe they could pull it off. Just maybe. But who's to say? Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have been defending their sovereignty, their freedom, their justice, their equality. They are defending their place on the global stage. And their fight is a fight that is not being publicized. This fight that the African nation is facing is true sovereignty. Africa has to realize that Africa is not poor. Africa is the way it is because of the corrupted officials. One thing that Africa has over every country is that colonization is done. Yeah, France and Europe and the members of NATO might be ravaging, as they would think, is the carcass of Africa. But Africa is stronger than the world thinks. And Africa is proving that, just like Iran is proving in defending their sovereignty. But this war in Africa is special because while people fight wars with bombs and missiles, Africa is fighting with dedication and loyalty. And this dedication and loyalty is waking Africa up to where Africa only has to deal with the cold, hard truth. And that's people that have been ruling Africa are only there to line their pockets. They're not in Africa for the prosperity of Africa. If they are still being led astray by European entities, that is the only thing that stands in Africa's way today. And France knows that. That even if Africa cut off all European powers and they didn't even get along, this would mean decimation for the European ideology and the European system that has been set in place globally. This is a war they don't want you to see. Why? because it threatens the very existence of the European powers in the West and in Europe. So I'm gonna hit y'all with this little content to give y'all a understanding of a continued understanding of what's going on in the general that was killed.
And I am broadcasting from the United States of Africa, the voice of continental sovereignty and truth. In today's broadcast, we bring you a deeply emotional and critical development from Mali and the wider African continent. The nation is in mourning following the tragic loss of its Minister of Defense, General Sadio Kamara, whose life was cut short during a violent attack targeting his residence in Bamako. This shocking event has not only shaken Mali, but has sent waves of concern across the entire Sahel region and beyond. As leaders, analysts, and citizens reflect on this loss, important questions are being raised about security, unity, and the future of African sovereignty. The situation highlights the growing challenges facing African nations, including insurgency, regional instability, and the urgent need for collective action. This is not just a Malian issue. It is an African issue. What happens in one part of our continent affects us all. The time has come for deeper reflection, stronger cooperation, and a renewed commitment to protecting our people and our future. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. Share it on WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, and all social media platforms to help spread awareness and connect Africans across the world. Together, we can build a united and informed continent. Stay with us as we bring you the full report.
They don't want you to know about it.
In Mali, the funeral of Defense Minister Sadio Kamara took place this Thursday. The general was killed on Saturday during an attack on his residence near Bamako, the capital. According to some sources, one of his wives also passed away in this attack. 2 of his grandchildren who were at his home were also killed. The senior officer was 47 years old. Renaud, what are your feelings tonight after the national tribute in Mali and Sadio Kamara's funeral?
What happened in Mali is extremely serious. It is extremely serious. The signal is dark, grave, not only for Mali, but for the entire region, because, well, for us, and this is something that must be repeated at every opportunity. That is to say, what is happening in the Sahel is not confined to the Sahel. It doesn't just concern. It's true there's been this split AES, ECOWAS, and all that. But political rifts, when we separate politically, we don't move the countries, you know. The geography remains the same and the stakes remain the same. This incursion, with this duo of both jihadists and separatists who made a breakthrough not only in Bamako, but in Kati, Mopti, Sevare, all these localities,
And Kidal.
localities like that, which were hit at the same time.
But reminds them, why is there insurgents everywhere France, Europe, NATO, or America finds that it has interest in? That should strike you as odd that everywhere America has interest, there are always conflicts in the region that are consistent. Whether they be terrorists, separatists, jihadists, whatever. I find it quite weird that these people are able to fight a whole army and military, but the country itself can't defeat these insurgents. And then you have the revelation that these insurgents are fighting with Westerner guns. Where are they getting this weaponry from?
It's an extremely serious situation. It's a very dark and troubling sign for the current power structure in Mali and even for the rest of the AES. And it's a sign all the more serious because, and this is a bit surprising, it feels like ECOWAS was more worried by what happened in Mali than the AES itself. We've heard more from the countries of the ECOWAS organization today, be more vocal on the matter than the neighbors, because even the
shock goes beyond Mali.
Far, far, far beyond. And it's something that must be remembered. That is to say, it's not just a Malian or Burkinabe or Nigerian issue. It's truly global. And we must see what's happening there and organize to manage this problem together. Otherwise, the blaze will affect all of our.
And people may say, how does this affect the world globally? Africa is one of the biggest producers of food sources around the world, especially into Europe. A lot of food sources, grain, wheat, barley, cocoa, a lot of things Africa exports out into the world that are used in a variety of things. Now, that is just the food resources. We have yet to begin to talk about the natural resources that Africa possesses underneath its feet. Cobalt, lithium, uranium, silver, diamonds, gold. These are things, these natural resources are things that has helped maintain the power of the European countries on a global platform. These same things that are underneath these Africans' feet have yet to benefited them as if they have benefited other countries. So when you say you don't understand the problem on a global scale, ask yourself, how is France able to maintain its sovereignty and its independence from other nations? How does Germany have one of the largest gold reserves right along with France, but yet they don't produce any gold? But yet they're heavily in Africa. See, these things are what matters globally. Because we've seen with the people that are siphoning the gold and natural resources out of Africa, we have seen these countries for decades and centuries being mega players internationally. But yet they have done no good in Africa. So even if the Africans fuck it up, I say it's their country. You gotta mess up until you get it right. But there has been centuries of not getting it right in Africa. So this is why it matters globally. Because the powers that have stepped on the stage that said that they were the leaders are actually the manipulators. And those that are controlling a vast majority of the global influence are not looking out for countries, are not trying to help countries. So this is why it matters globally. Because then you start to peel back the layers and see that these nations said they put themselves in place in order to help these countries. But yet, have they helped them? So it makes you wonder, what are these countries really there for? What are these countries in other places for? Are they there to help? Or are they there to construct the outcome?
Countries.
Arimiao.
What I can say, first of all, is to start by sending my condolences, to offer my condolences to all of Mali, and with whom we share the pain, the ordeal that the Malian people have gone through this past April 25th. It's an ordeal that concerns all of Africa. I'm not talking about ECOWAS. nor the AES, but it's all of Africa. And I said that Africa must rethink itself. Based on what we experienced on the 25th in Mali, the entire African continent must seriously rethink itself, must deeply and honestly question itself. Because you won't tell me that we can truly be a continent or a power where even today we still find separatists, we still find jihadists. It's true that from time to time we might hear that in France there are attacks. You might hear about them, for example, in Canada and even in Germany. In fact, almost everywhere you can think of. And in the United States, you might hear of them, but they're isolated cases. But you'll never be told that there's a jihadist network conquering part of Canada or part of France, or that there's a separatist network consuming the entire country. And this is happening right under the noses of all the African leaders. And it's happening while all the world's great powers look on with a dazed expression, just watching. And I don't know of any African country that manufactures weapons. I don't know of any African country where high-level communication equipment is made.
Is she texting someone behind your back?
Made. And I'm asking myself the question of what is actually happening. Because for me, it's not just Mali. My young brother said earlier that we must repeat and hammer home to the African continent that something must be done. You see Algeria? It borders Mali, Mauritania, countries like Morocco, those large countries surrounding Mali, other countries surrounding Niger and Burkina. I think they must start questioning themselves. If they aren't complicit, everyone must start wondering whose turn is next. Because once the alliance of Sahel states is crushed, it means that we, the countries to the south, must seriously start to worry. That's why I said that Africa needs to quickly rethink and seek to resolve this issue fast.
The passing of Sadio Kamara is symbolic for the attackers, but what about the Malian authorities?
No, I believe it's a great loss. When you follow Assimi Goïta's speech, he pointed it out. And we also saw the emotion that took hold when everyone found out. In Mali, everyone learned of Sadio Kamara's death, and even beyond Mali, today, beyond all these emotions, we must ask ourselves a certain number of questions. How did we get to this point? I think it's very important to ask this question. And that,
The main causes.
the causes, how did we get to this point? Where Mali today is plagued by divisions. Rebel groups, jihadist groups, the separatists. And it's not in Mali alone, but in Burkina, Niger, and in these countries. How did we get to this point? Chenya was saying something just a moment ago regarding the fact that African leaders must take responsibility.
To see how things stand. That's true. African leaders are aware and they know they must take responsibility. But what about those who pull the strings? That we cannot overlook either. At some point, people want all this to stop because it doesn't allow the continent to move forward. But don't forget that behind all this, there are others pulling the strings. And this is known to many leaders. Now, what should be done? Is it because some pull the strings that we must continue to live through such situations that don't allow us to progress? I think that indeed to join Arimio Chanyao, leaders must rethink how this Africa should function. True, we'll come back to the question regarding this rapprochement between Chad and...
Not between Chad, between the JNIM?
No, I'm talking about Chad and Algeria. We'll come back to the third topic, yes, to this rapprochement. But I think we need to rethink seriously. We must stop the hypocrisy. When I speak of hypocrisy, he just mentioned many countries surrounding Mali.
The neighboring countries.
Yes. But beyond that, this is what Mali is suffering, and there you go. I was interested, meaning I'm very pleased with the reaction of the UN, from the UN official regarding this situation. Also from ECOWAS regarding this situation. And I think that
Condemnations.
the condemnations and so on. I think the time, if we can perhaps seize this opportunity to make this rapprochement that's taking shape, meaning the rapprochement between the AES and ECOWAS, which is taking, I think the opportunity is given today for ECOWAS, beyond this condemnation, to actually do something. Why not approach the comrades from Mali, the three countries, to see what needs to be done to bring something more, in terms of fighting this phenomenon?
Gunu. Well, there's so much to say on this issue when analyzing it that sometimes one gets lost. I'd like to go back to two factors that perhaps made possible this incursion. After all, as you recall, against a backdrop of collusion between two strong anti-Malian forces, namely the JNIM, which is linked to Al-Qaeda, so classic terrorism as we knew it back in the days of bin Laden, and the Azawad separatists, meaning all the Tuareg forces who framed this ultimately as an Arab.
Now, this is where it gets crazy. JNIM, the jihadist group, right, is linked to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan. Started in Afghanistan, somewhere in the Middle East. How did this terrorist group jump continents? And I know you might be saying it's easy, terrorists jump continents and the ideologies. Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, the group that bin Laden was a part of. Al-Qaeda, the same Al-Qaeda that the lady went on the military show and said that the leaders of Al-Qaeda are hiding in Africa. And I said it then, and you can go pull it up on my shorts probably a few months ago. But when she was speaking about it, I just found that it was very weird that they're hiding in Africa now, and that's a country that America and Europe needs to continuously siphon its natural resources. And it bothers me that if people knew that the leaders of Al-Qaeda were hiding and doing business in Central, East, and West Africa, how come the proper authorities weren't notified? If Al-Qaeda is such a bad terrorist group, why America or France just doesn't come in and help support getting rid of the terrorists? Oh, because Al-Qaeda is the same group that bin Laden was a part of. And bin Laden's father was friends with the Bush family. And their money financer was the same man. And when 9/11 happened, the only family that was able to fly, and not just fly in America, but fly out of America, was the bin Laden family. The same son that spearheaded this group, ran this group, and then you tell us that you killed him and then threw his body in the ocean, so wouldn't nobody want to make some type of idol worshiping out of it. If that's not a load of cow shit, I don't know what is. But it's been proven now on numerous occasions that high-ranking officials and members within Al-Qaeda and in the jihadis, that they are actually being ran by Jewish Mossad agents. And you can look that up. They just found a couple of them in Iran. They found a couple in Africa. And I've always said that these Zionists have the ability of camouflage. They can grow a beard and speak Arabic. They're Arabs. They cut their hair, shave their beard. They're Spaniards, Europeans, maybe Italians, maybe Russians, maybe West European. and can still play the fact that they're Jewish. You want us to believe that a religion that says committing suicide and getting people to commit suicide is one of the things that will never ever be forgiven in Islam. And you want me to believe that it's the Muslims that's actually out here blowing themselves up? It's the Muslims that created this? But yet you want me to deny the fact that these Mossad Israeli agents are being captured as terrorists, and then when they pull back the face mask and do facial recognition, they're actually Zionists. So I just wonder what these groups are really formed for, and who are they actually formed by, and who is actually using them. Because it can't be that they're Muslim and they're separatists and they want to establish Sharia law, because it's a lot of Muslim countries that practice Sharia law and they can move there. But then you might say, but Pharaoh, they want to establish Sharia law in their land. Okay. That becomes a problem of civil complaint. Now these civil complainers are hitting R2 on the remote control and just appears bazookas. A lot of guns, grenades, drones. How is this happening? If the country is poor, the separatists got to be poorer. So how are they getting better guns?
A Muslim versus Black African conflict, practically. And once that's said, one can imagine that collusion very easily exists on these two fronts. Not only on ethnic grounds, but also on religious issues, meaning a certain form of extremist Islamism that easily calls for certain complicities against not only the Malian state, but I dare say black people, Negro people, to use the term. Because today we are in a context where the state is in a context of asymmetry, of capacity compared to the attackers. Today, we have forces that through a strange set of circumstances find themselves with millions of dollars in funding that supposedly comes from ransoms. Some people from the Middle East find themselves in Mali, in northern Mali. They get arrested, kidnapped, and ransoms of $50 million, $10 million are paid. These are colossal sums. These are sums that the Malian state doesn't have.
They don't have it.
Yes. And so for me, even the ease with which these kidnappings happen and the amount of money that Emirati and Qatari forces pay in quotes, to get their hostages back surprises me. And there is really the question of who pays that much money to get one or two men back. It looks a lot like a form of more or less illegal cash transfer, you know? And when we know that certain actors from these regions of the world are used to financing.
Why are you paying $80 for garbage internet?
This is Ryoko Pro. It's a pocket-sized Wi-Fi hotspot.
Actors from these regions of the world are used to financing a certain Wahhabism or a certain Salafism against a backdrop of when there are contributions for the expansion of a certain Islam,
A certain ideology.
we can ask ourselves questions, knowing that it's not the first time this kind of thing has happened. There's no proof, obviously, but still, we can ask the question. Then there's also the other thing. The elder was talking about this matter of actors in the shadows. We must still realize that Mr. Camara was the architect of the union between Mali and Russia. And so his death today, it's a serious blow to this connection. Mali, Russia, AES, Russia there. And so we can imagine that people who are enemies of Russia in other theaters
Might also be targeted.
or rather might be quite happy that this general, who is the architect of this connection, has fallen, you know. So we are still in a configuration where it goes beyond Mali alone, and where we can imagine certain actors being quite happy that this guy who made the connection between Russia and Mali possible falls, because once he falls like that, everyone says, well, you shouldn't have challenged us after all.
Ah, yes, of course. I don't want to go straight to saying that I accuse
Our authorities. I accuse the African Union. I accuse ECOWAS. I accuse all Africans.
And finally, at least I accuse.
Yes, I would simply like to say that there is a laxity in Africa. You saw that when the imperialists decided to finish off Gaddafi, no African head of state reacted concretely to protect him or to say, no, we do not want to be complicit in this barbarity. They let it happen, and these are the consequences. It's the logical consequence of Gaddafi's elimination, which allowed these jihadi networks, these terrorist networks, to strengthen themselves. Today, the impression is given that it's the AES. And I think in Africa, I even heard some people saying yesterday that, it's over for the AES. Others were saying that too.
That they won't be able to do anything.
But they won't be able to do anything against whom? People are coming to invade your brothers. People are coming to eliminate your brothers. And here I'll say there's a Gabonese proverb I like, which says that he who eats the gorilla's hand must think of his own hand. Today it's Mali. Yesterday when we talked about jihadism, it wasn't Togo, it wasn't Benin, it wasn't even Nigeria. And we used to hear people say that, there are jihadists.
In Afghanistan.
The UN sent people, the international community. And finally we are in Togo. Togo is affected by the jihadi attack, Benin, Nigeria. And finally, it's evolving. It means that if today we don't learn the lessons to handle this with care and find solutions, and we just sit back because there might be heads of state who are happy. I'm saying there may be heads of state, not only from ECOWAS Africa, but from Africa, who are happy because they serve the neo-colonialists. They serve global mafia networks. Who think that, well, those little thugs from Mali, Burkina, and Niger haven't seen anything yet, but that's false. Experience proves that when you try and it works, you can try it anywhere. You saw that when Trump was in Venezuela, carrying a president in triumph.
Nicolas Maduro.
It made him want to try the same thing everywhere. And now when it's done in Mali, Africa remains silent. Because what I'm saying, I'm speaking carefully. I'm thinking that if Africa as a whole says that it's fine, it's in the Sahel. It's the three countries that are hardest hit. We are going to do something. We are going to come together. Look at Algeria. They say they're signing alliances. We'll talk about it.
The partnership itself was signed on the eve of the attack.
So we need to dig deeper to see what Africa wants. What do the people who guide Africa, what do they concretely want for this Africa?
The Malian authorities are calling for a national awakening. Sadio Camara is thus the face of those who fell last weekend in Mali, and perhaps of all those who have fallen in this war linked to terrorism. But can this passing of Sadio Camara be a trigger, right, for this national mobilization, for this national awakening for which Assimi Goïta is calling on Malian citizens?
Yes and no. Yes, because today it still hurts because Sadio Camara was not just anyone. And then as far as I know, he is well loved by the Malian population. And even within the great silent ones, Sadio Camara is well loved. So that means that it can still, the emotion that has taken hold of the population, it can still contribute to this mobilization. No, because for some time now, let's not forget that Assimi Goïta's seat has been rocking. It's not that. We also listened to some audios, I don't know if it's true or false, regarding some meeting held between high-ranking officers. There were leaks of an audio that spoke of dissatisfaction from a part of the great silent one. So within the population, there are some who wanted Assimi Goïta to leave. That we must acknowledge. And when I say they wanted him to leave, these are people through whom, as I was saying earlier, those pulling the strings go to reach the Malian authorities in any case. I don't think that today there could be an African head of state, whether from the sub-region or African, who will be happy with what's happening in Mali. It's possible, there may be, but if a head of state today allows himself to rejoice,
to simply rejoice in this particular situation,
I tell myself that he still hasn't understood anything. He still hasn't understood anything. We know how it goes. Those who help him or those behind him who might push him to rejoice and adopt such behavior, tomorrow they'll be the same ones turning against him. And I think we must, this work in question that Chanyao was talking about earlier, this work is at the level, at the highest level, at the highest level. Now I ask myself the question, we in Africa, we who have our hands tied where we always hold out our hand everywhere to develop, we hold it out, even to go take a shit, we hold it out. How are we going to do it? Yes, let me say it, ma'am. How are we going to do it to develop? That is to say, we must review. Earlier, I was saying something I hadn't finished about the causes and what leads us into these situations. I think that at the level of leadership, at the level of governance, that's what needs to be reviewed. In addition to that, and this is a matter of internal responsibility, even if we agree that on the outside there are people pulling the strings because they have their interest in it. So in any case, African head of state, I think what's happening in Mali concerns us all. Today it's true, the UN reacted through Guterres, ECOWAS also reacted, and I say it.
Ninja, please! Music Flow AI just cooked this in 8 seconds.
And I say it.
the AES also reacted.
The AES also reacted, excuse me. It can still be an opportunity.